Right. Welcome to the DJVonFire podcast. I'm your host, David Joshua Vales. Producing, as always, is Jonathan Andrew Vales. I don't know exactly what a producer does. Like, what's the definition of producer? You help set up our cameras, do our sound, edit, upload.
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right. And we would have recorded about a half hour earlier today, but he was running late. Our host today, no, I'm the host. Our guest today is none other than Susan Michelle Donovan. Hi, Susan.
Hello. Am I supposed to wave?
You can.
Okay.
People do different things. Some
All
sit there awkwardly or wave or smile. But we're coming to you from the basement of Camp Manitoqua because we've been here for over 6 months. Do you know better than me? Is it about 6 months?
Yeah, it's been over 6
Okay.
months.
And we've shot at different places. We were in the office for Joe and Jeremiah and Matt, and I visited Hannah. Oh, that's the other one. Hannah and Danielle. We were on location, and we were at my house for a few, and so now we're back here. If we're ever recording down in the basement, like as we did with Derek, it's because we're recording during second service of church. So that's where we're at. But thanks for being our guest. I asked you to be here to be a guest a couple weeks ago, and you said, I want to get to know people first. And then I recorded like 2 more back to back, and I'm like, all right, you're up.
I know, like, that's not, like, I meant, like, more and more people.
Right.
Not just 2, but that's cool.
But I got you in. Because obviously we know each other, but the whole point is to get everybody to know you and then to figure out why you're here. So tell us what brought you to second place. How long ago was it? Just start there first. Like,
Okay.
what brought you here? Like, that's it. What brought you to second place?
Yeah, so Tom and I grew up in the church that Joe and Sarah were part of, Stone Church. And then we had left when we got married and were part of another church. And then once second place launched, that other church was kind of actually almost closing, I guess. And, we've known Joe and Sarah, Drew and Jana and all them for the long time. So we were part of the launch team, not the original 12 disciples or whatever you want to call them. But shortly after, before February of 2010, we had been going and part of, the planting and all that stuff like that. So, I mean, the DeCenzos and Eversons are like family to us.
Mhm.
So it just kind of made sense to...
And then what are you currently, when did you first, so technically you were volunteering from the very beginning. Like,
Yeah.
there was never not a time you were
Right.
volunteering.
Yes.
I kept thinking, because I did know you went to the Chicago church for a little while, right? Is that where you went? Or
Mm-mm.
where'd you go?
No, it's called Reunion.
Oh, okay.
I actually met at Sandburg High School for a short time. Reunion.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I remember.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know if you came here after that. Like, was that before or after? So now that you say
Yes.
that, it was before. So you technically have just been volunteering or being a big part of second place or a little part of second place from the beginning. So what
Yeah.
did you start doing? Like, let's say that February when it opened up, or were you not?
I had a 2-month-old at that point. So I had a fat old baby in my arm greeting people on that first day. So we all had our second place t-shirts on and we're just part of the I guess greeting team or whatever, just like welcoming people in and stuff like that. And so I've done kids ministry, I've done music. I'm still part of the worship team now. I was off for a while and came back to that. What else? The care team ministry. So I'm a part of that where we get meals together for people who need them for babies or surgeries and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also, 2 years ago this month, became the finance person. I tell people I'm the second place sugar mama because everyone's always asking me for money,
Yeah.
and I'm giving it to them. So
Which it's right up your alley because you love numbers.
I do.
They let you grab the mic once in a while.
Yes.
Do they usually, when you do the announcements, is it typically because they need you to talk about numbers at some point? Or do they ever just let you do announcements just to do announcements?
I mean, sometimes I am just the host, or whatever, because, usually I was doing it once a month, but it typically ends up where I talk about money. I feel like I want to get up and not talk about money
Yeah.
sometime, but I am passionate about it.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know.
We talked about having some things in common. I'm an introvert. I have trouble talking one-on-one. And I've figured out, I mean, you could talk to this a little bit. So I'm going off on a side tangent, but I just kind of like to get to the point when I have a conversation. So I have trouble with small talk. I can't talk about the weather because I don't really care about the weather.
Yes.
I mean, unless there obviously is something huge coming. But so when I have a conversation, I mean, like, let's get to the meat and potatoes of it. So that's why I struggle with it. Because most conversations, when you walk into church and you see someone as they're leaving or coming, it's like 2 seconds. But then I could get up. I gave a message a couple months ago, and it wasn't that big of a deal because as a teacher, it's much easier to just be in front of a huge group, which is weird because some people are like, I could have small conversations all day. It's talking in front of a group that I'm afraid of. Did you say that you're similar to that?
Yeah, I'm like the same. We're like the male and female version of
Yeah.
sort of the same person, like the
love that.
math and the teaching and all that stuff. But yeah, like I'm much more comfortable talking in front of people than like you said, one-on-one. Like, I always want to be that person that, like, can make conversation and you feel comfortable talking to. I'm just not that person. So, like, if I'm not talking to someone at church, it's not because I'm, like, some people think I'm, like, stuck up or whatever, and it's not that. It's just, like, I literally don't know what to say to you or how to, like, start a conversation.
So if anybody is more of the small talker and not the big talker, come up and talk to us during service, not during service. Joe would probably be upset. Like before service or after service, come give us some tips on how to talk, do a little small talk, and then we could give you some tips on how to talk in front of a big group. She has a Trinity shirt on. Jonathan, can we see that in the camera there? We both attended Trinity math, so we had the same professors. We've taught high school math, and so that's kind of like led you into the finances probably a little bit. But I was going to say, you have your Trinity shirt on. I said went to Trinity before you. I never bought myself a Trinity shirt, although you said you didn't either when you attended there.
No.
So when did you start buying them?
When I became a professor at Trinity. So.
Professor, she's big time, everybody.
Yes, I know, right? Like, it's just a title. It doesn't mean anything special. It's just like teachers are Mr. and Mrs. And like when you're in high school, it's professor and doctor, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not like that cool or anything. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't buy any Trinity gear until I started going there or teaching there, working there.
And in our pre-conversation, we were trying to get the producer here, Jonathan Andrew, to become an alum as well, to be a student there. And we'll see what we do. We'll see if he gets over there.
Well, I feel like there's so many young people that go to this church, and a lot of people go to ONU, and I just want them to know that there's another Christian college in Illinois. That is actually a really good college, and they have really cool professors too. So.
Let's go. I'm going to rewind a little bit for myself because we want to talk about our having families here. And so I started out, my parents sent me public school, elementary. I went to a public high school I mentioned a few weeks back. And then I chose to go to Trinity Christian while living at home. What path did you take as far as your type of schooling?
Yeah, I went to private school up through 8th grade. And then I went to public high school. And then I also chose to live at home and go to Trinity because I didn't want to, I was very involved in church at that time, and I didn't really want to leave that. And so this was close and Christian.
So speak to your experience from going to, well, maybe just to that specific private school, and then the transition to public high school. And then if you want to, you can roll that into what is your plan for your own children? Because you have one, is she 7th or 8th grade?
7th. So mine are 7th, 5th, and 3rd grade.
Okay. So first start with you. How was your experience in the private? Did you appreciate that education? How did you appreciate the public school? And then like, how do you see, or what have you been doing with your own?
Yeah, I mean, like I loved the Stone Church Christian Academy. I won't sing the song, I could, but I won't. And not everyone, it was a different experience for everyone, but I was always like the rule follower, the firstborn, so that kind of thing didn't bother me. And so I went from a 8th grade class of less than 20 students to a graduating class of over 1,000. So it was a big shift, but it wasn't bad. Like once you kind of find your group, I was in like the honors track or whatever. So like you kind of stuck together with all the same people. So it wasn't horrible. And then I chose Trinity because I did want a smaller college because I didn't want the big lecture hall and stuff like that. I wanted it to be personalized. And I had classes where there were like 5 students, so that kind of small community where the professors know who you are was something that was big that I was looking for. So My children go to public school, and that was a decision that I struggled with, and it really just depended on where we ended up living, because we had looked at houses in like Moni and different areas, and they just didn't work out for whatever reason. So, depending on where we lived, they might have gone to private school, but we ended up in a community with amazing public schools that just offer so much. Several of the administrators are Christians, and things like that. So while it was a struggle to am I a bad Christian parent if my kids go to public school or whatever, I feel like they're in a really good place, and they've made some really good friends and connections and people that we can kind of minister to, along with them getting quality education, like different opportunities that they wouldn't have in private school. So,
did you speak about yourself for a minute? Because I don't know if your kids could speak to their experience yet, but when you went from the private school of all these rules and following it and hearing about Jesus every day to going to the public high school, was it that big of a deal? Did your family set up such a foundation and you were so involved in church that it wasn't that big of a deal to go to public? Or could you even really tell a huge difference? Or because of the people you hung out with, it really wasn't even a thing?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I hung out with like the honor students, so it wasn't. I'm sure there was another side of high school, but I just didn't see that, So I didn't know about the drugs and all the other stuff and the partying. That wasn't my scene, and I was very involved at church too. So growing up in church and being part of the youth group, and most of my close friends were still the people I went to elementary school with, and because they were in the youth group with me and things like that. So it really wasn't that big of a deal.
So I just said public, and then I chose Trinity. We chose to have our kids go to basically Stone Church Christian Academy. I taught there myself. That was right out of college. I did 7th grade at Stone Church Christian Academy. The name changed, but the principal stayed and all the staff stayed the same. But we chose to go private because we were in a community where we were within, like you said, depending where you lived, it kind of limits your choices maybe or that. But we did private, and then our kids went to public high school. And I thought it was important for them to transition from public or private to public, and to have that experience while I was still there, because I didn't know if they went K through 12 all private, then having to do that on their own, literally on their own, like out of the house, out of the community, away from home, that transition would be eye-opening. Like you said, you kind of fit into that honors track, but so that was kind of the route we went. My wife went to that same school as you did, so she grew up with the same rules, and I liked that foundation. Now that 2 kids are out of high school, one, our producer here, is still a junior in high school, and then we have an 11-year-old. I feel like so far the 3 of them have proven that, I think the strong family foundation of like what we lay and having that church background, I feel like that's kind of an important, that's more important than any of the public, private.
I think so, but I do kind of think back to like my experience and just what they learned, like the scripture, my kids don't know as much as they would if they had gone to the private school, because you just literally spend half an hour a day in Bible class and memorize. That's part of your grades. So that part, I do wish that they knew a little bit more that way. And so we try, we'll have a verse we've had one up for a month now, where we're just trying to get that one in our heads and in our hearts and things like that. So it's tough not having that extra help, I guess, if you will. But I think it does really come down to your family and the church around you too. They have good friends here and things like that. So,
just to throw a twist into it, then our youngest, who is a little bit further behind, which he's 11. Is that how old's your son?
Yeah, Ethan's just a couple months older than Owen.
Yeah. Okay, so, but the school ends up shutting down just because of the numbers. And so we end up homeschooling the last couple of years. And to me, that works. You know what I mean? And that works too. So if you're a young couple out there, a young family, just know that it all works, especially if you're praying over it, especially if you believe God's involved in the conversation. At the end of the day, He's going to make sure it works no matter what. So I just kind of want to get that out there. I knew that the different road, you've been both public, private, and now having a young family, to talk about that, I thought it was important. Side note, so like switching gears a little bit, do we have anything, do we want to talk about math? Did you want to do some math for them? You were looking for a whiteboard, but we didn't have one.
I can always talk about math. Like I grew up being good at math, but then I went to Trinity and I didn't have to take math. And I remember Sharon Robert coming up to me and saying, "So are you gonna like take some math class?" I'm like, "I'm never taking a math class ever again." And then like a year later, I'm like, "I think I'm gonna major in math."
So what did you go there for? Did you have a major already?
I was going to do education. I knew I wanted to teach.
Oh.
I always knew I wanted to teach. And then I realized, like, I don't want to grade history papers and English papers. Like, I don't want to read everyone's writing. So math, it just ended up being math. And, like, over the years of teaching it, you know, you actually fall in love with math, which is kind of weird, I know. But, like, I don't know, this won't be aired till, next week. But, like, today is March 7th, 2021. So 3/7/21. Like, numbers... 3 times 7 equals 21, in case you didn't know when you're watching. So, like, stuff like that makes me happy. I don't know why. It's just stupid stuff, but...
Which is another, like, partner in crime. Like whether you're preparing for a new semester and you're trying to find your math memes to share at the beginning, you always, like, send them my way and, like, is this corny enough? I think that's technically the question you're asking. I don't think you're like, will they get it? Because you get it. So you're just like, I get it. Vales will get it. I don't really care if the students get it, but it is funny. And then you start out every semester with these crazy, corny math jokes.
I do. I like corny math jokes. I mean, like, I think it's part of the job description when you become a math teacher. They ask you if you can tell corny jokes.
Yes.
Because if you can't, then you really can't teach math. That's just part of the job description.
Yes. Now, this is going to get out in the open. I don't know how many of your students from Trinity, but like, I also get from her, we share stories of answers that are just off the wall ridiculous. There's a famous one, not from Susan, but like, where it says find X, and then they just draw an arrow to the X. You might have seen that on the internet somewhere, but you've been known to send a few that like, can you believe this is the answer I got? Like, and I'm not talking about like memes. I'm talking legit, like from your own class.
Yes.
Directions and crazy answers that these students have, and you're not meaning to poke fun, but you just got to like let it out and let someone else realize the craziness that you have in answering and grading these tests and quizzes.
Yeah, because not everyone gets it. Like, especially math. You know, like it's a subject that not everyone gets, and so like there are just some answers from students where you're just like, okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a formula at the top of the page. It says in directions, use this formula, and then they like write the alphabet down or something.
It's like you don't even read the problem at all. I mean, like I can only do so much for you. You know, like I can't sit there and read the test to you. You know, like I expect at some point that a college students take some initiative. You know.
So you send it to me. You throw your sarcasm into it. Because that's a whole other thing we could talk about, sarcasm. But like, you send the sarcasm, but then because she's a good professor, she then writes on the paper something helpful and creative, or constructive, and for them to grow from. But for the half second in between, it's just a vent. Like, can you believe this? And then it's back to that. Jonathan's like, is that what all teachers do?
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
Like if you do dumb stuff, yes. Sorry. But if you're a good student, then no. Like if you don't give me dumb answers, I have nothing to share with other people. So,
and don't construe. So this is part sarcasm, meaning like, I don't care if you're not good at math at all. There's a procedure and things we ask for that you can always follow. And so I don't think you're dumb if you just feel like you don't get math. That's not what either one of us is saying. But it's like when you don't read the directions and you come up with something, or like something we did all week, and then on Friday you take a quiz and you answer something from like 7 weeks ago. You're like, were you not here the last 5 days? So those are kind of the topics. One thing I did learn, because I am a very sarcastic person, as are you, maybe a little bit. But I called it Susan speak, is what I said the other day. But I realized after a few years of teaching, because I was just sarcasm in the classroom, I usually could find a student that has a good sense of humor. Then I could be sarcastic with that person, and they could give it right back, and I'm okay with that, being comfortable. But I didn't find out till like, or maybe as I matured, got older, I sent out a questionnaire at the end of the year once, and a student goes, I totally get your sarcasm. I go, good. But then they go, but not everybody gets sarcasm. And that kind of hit me like, well, I think probably at the beginning, I'm like, oh, well, too bad. But then it's like, yeah, if you're not raised around sarcasm,
Yeah.
then it does come off as mean. Like when
Yeah.
they're like, in my early years, I'm like, Vales is mean. I'm like, well, what do you mean? I'm like one of the nicest people. But it's, people don't speak sarcasm.
No, they don't. And like I realize that too. I don't do it as much now. Like
Right.
I'll share corny jokes and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But like the sarcasm, I have noticed there are just some people that don't get it, and we might be a little over the board sarcastic. So I have a question. Can I ask a question?
You could try.
Because like I'm a math teacher, and maybe Jonathan would be better at answering this. I hate helping my children do their math homework. Like I hate it. I am so patient with my students. I can answer their questions all day long. But when my kids come to me with math questions, and my husband will be like, yeah, this is so true. I just don't have that patience. So I don't know if are you the same way or not quite the same?
I don't think he would be one to ask. He does pretty well. It comes a little bit more natural to him. I don't know where he gets the math from, because all three kids would have gone through the same curriculum growing up. But he'll ask me really quick in the morning. Like he'll throw a problem on the board because Jonathan happens to be taking the same course I teach, just with a different teacher. So I know exactly where he should be at that particular moment. Have you been? You got to speak up here, but like, have there times you are afraid to ask me, or no?
I wouldn't say afraid to talk, but I would feel like, not dumb, but I would feel like he knows exactly the answer right now, and I'm kind of struggling.
So you were embarrassed that your
Maybe
son
embarrassed.
didn't get it like your dad?
Yeah.
See, mine aren't embarrassed. I don't know. I think it's like the student who comes to you with the like dumb response. Like you just have to do it, like you're not trying, and that's my thing is like you just have to try first, and then I don't know. But my kids' schools did away with homework a while back, and that has been like my saving grace as a parent, and how I think that I haven't totally lost it with my children. So.
I will say in our math community and our teachers that we get frustrated with it, and sometimes you send them a different way. You're like, can you go next door and ask, or this, we help each other out in the math department, because it's different when it's with your own children, unfortunately. So if you're a math person out there, or you teach anything, if you're a teacher of any kind and then have to deal with your own children, like throw it in the comments as to how you do that successfully. We really haven't had that big of a deal. David, I would say, would ask more questions, which again, I'm glad they ask questions. Because sometimes it's like, well, if they're not asking, are they whatever, like you were saying, like, but if he wasn't showing effort originally, that's when I would get frustrated. Right. If he's trying, if he's like, here's 6 pages of things I tried and none of it worked, then I'm with you all day. I could have the patience of a saint. But if you have a half sheet of paper with one problem written down, you're like, I don't get any of it. That's not good enough for me. So that's where I would get frustrated. Good question. Is there something else we want to talk about math?
Sorry if I distracted.
Oh, new math. Do you want to talk about new math?
No, that's going to be like a whole other video. So we don't
so
have to get into that.
Many of you hear about new math, and then you get on Facebook and you blurb about how, in my day, we just lined numbers up and add them. It was a piece of cake. I don't know why they're changing it. But then being a professor and being a high school teacher, I talk to parents every year, every week, that say, well, I got to a level and that's as far as I can get. The whole point of quote unquote new math is so that they have a better understanding for a lifetime. It's not just, here's the basics, you get to algebra, and then that's as far as I got.
Right.
So many conversations, parent-teacher conferences, which you did a job now. Now, you taught high school for how many years?
9 years.
9 years. So you had parent conversations.
Oh, yeah.
I never made it to high school math, probably. I never could do it, so I can't help them anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Did you have plenty of those conversations?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so give me your 30-second version of your take on new math. Not the fact that, I did it this way all my life, I don't know why they got to change things.
No, I think it's great, and we have disagreeing opinions on this. I don't know the high school. I'm not as familiar with the high school level, but like Common Core math just helps students understand, like you said, for a lifetime. So not just memorize the formula, they can do it while they're in high school or whatever grade they're in, and then be done with it. Well, now you will be able to help your kids when they go through this eventually, And I have a student Teaching in the college is interesting because I have international students. And so some of them come and they're like, this is really easy, you know, the stuff we're doing. Like, we learn math so much better in my country, you know, like, so you get an interesting perspective and realize that we really don't teach math very well here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the new math, if you will, is just a way of trying to get back to that. I mean, a better way of teaching it, I guess.
It's supposed to be more intuitive to students. And you said that once in a post because someone threw up the 20th one in a row. And it first came up maybe like a decade ago or
Yeah.
something. And you finally had it. You're like, listen, people, you're missing the point. And so Ethan's
Right.
in the back seat. He's like 5 or 6. I am not someone that has flashcards from the age of like 1 with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do anything special with your kids for math or no? You can be honest.
No,
No.
not really.
So it just was more of a natural thing. So he was in the back seat. He goes, give me 2 numbers to add. So I started basic. I thought he just wanted like 3 plus 4, but because he's literally like 5 or 6. And then he goes, no, like big numbers. So I go 38 plus 47, something that I knew he'd have to carry.
Right.
And so what did I just say? 38 plus
30
47.
47.
So he goes 85. I'm like, he's 5 or 6 years old. And I did not like drill this into him. And I go, how did you do that? He goes, well, I just took 30 plus 40. He goes, I know that's 70.
Right.
And 15 has an extra 1 in it. So that's 85. Like literally Common Core himself.
Yep.
Like he didn't learn that because he was, if it was in 5th, 6th grade, they weren't even learning add. I mean,
Right.
5 or 6 years old. He wasn't even learning adding yet.
Yeah.
But like for him to do Common Core, which that's the intuition.
It is. It just makes more sense. Like,
So
it really does.
if you're listening, you have kids that are young and you're doing Common Core and you're like, this isn't how I learned it. It's actually more intuitive if that's the way you learn from the beginning. All right, we can switch gears from math because we just nerded out there for a little
I know,
bit.
like everyone stopped watching, like they're talking about
So we got to put something in their comments, Jonathan, like or like in the video, like keep watching past this. We'll get there eventually.
it, right?
So my God moment today on the way to church is I have an audiobook called Walking in My Combat Boots. Okay, I don't know how I picked it. It was probably in like because I've listened to other military books. And so I have one book. Someone asked this week, like, how do I read my books or how many do I read? Or I have one on my phone on my Kindle. That's my phone is my Kindle technically. I have one going on my audio in my car. And then I have a book by my nightstand. And so you let me borrow Bob Goff. Do you want to give a quick, any quick plug for Bob Goff?
I mean, anything by him is great, but Love Does is probably my favorite book of all time. It's just an amazing read, so everyone should read that one.
Love Does, Bob Goff. It is a very good book. So anyways, I get this book and I start listening to it. I'm trying to like listen to it for a while, but it turns out that like every chapter is one soldier telling a quick story about being in combat, like seriousness combat, like life and death combat, not just like, oh, I was in the Army, the end.
Right.
So I also said on a podcast, I had my Burpee shirt. It said, so I started this month, I'm currently doing 2,000 burpees to raise money. It's overall, not per day, but 2,000 burpees to raise money to stop soldiers' suicide. So on Facebook, literally one of the ads, because last year was all about challenges. So one of the ads that Facebook thought I would like is this Stop Soldier Suicide 2,000 burpee challenge is why I probably got it. So I signed up for it. It didn't cost me anything to sign up. And I just posted it. And it turns out it was a fundraiser. I get a free t-shirt, but the fundraiser is to help to go towards this organization that stops soldier suicide. There's a whole point to this, by the way. And so I just put it on my Facebook, and sure enough, I'm like $200. I'm like, well, hopefully I can get 100, and then I'll just top off the rest. So I'm almost at 1,000. You donated as well, thank you.
Because you said either join me in doing burpees or donate, and I chose.
I did say that,
Donate.
so I appreciate you taking me up on either offer. And I've even had some people donate and do burpees, so there's your second throwdown. They're like, it was a penny per burpee. If you didn't want to do the burpees, just give me a penny per burpee. So someone's like, here's $20.
That was me.
Here's your $20. Good luck with that.
That's what you
But so I'm driving to church today. Usually Ethan is with me, but he stayed the night at his grandparents. They're watching church from home. And so I was by myself. I'm like, let me just throw on a chapter while I drove there. This guy's name is Nick Black. He tells his whole story, how they survived the crazy war. And he goes, I got back, one of my buddies, 2 weeks after getting back, pulled off to the side of the road and committed suicide. And he goes, he found out more people have committed suicide that have been in the armed forces than all the people that have been killed in wars.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, I did not know that stat. He goes, so he started the Stop Soldier Suicide fundraiser. I'm like, wait, the thing I'm doing, like the thing I picked up 3 weeks ago and then I started doing it, like this is the reason why I had to listen to this book for this one chapter. Like literally, like, as I'm pulling into the parking lot, he's like, so I started an organization because I didn't know what it was. It came up as a Facebook ad to do a challenge to get a free T-shirt. Then it turned into, okay, here's why you're doing it for a fundraiser. Still didn't know much about it, and then here's this guy's combat story. So burpees, so the whole thing. So I thought that was pretty neat little. We talked about silly coincidences, but I wanted to like go with the burpees thing because you're like, I'm paying. But you had already said in like January, you had set up your own challenge.
Yes.
Like at the end of January, I didn't even know you were doing a challenge. I obviously throw challenges out to people. But what was your challenge? What did it originally start with in January?
Well, I think it was like the stuff you had shared at the end of the year, or the beginning of the year with all your numbers. And I'm like, crap, like 2020, I just really sat a lot.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't very active physically. And I had been previously. And so like, I was like, I need to do something to start moving. So again, because of numbers, it's 2021, right? So I challenged myself to do 21 burpees every day for the whole year, and run 21 miles a month. Because again, the numbers have to make sense for me. So yeah, I've been doing burpees too. And like, so your number 2,000 is about 65 a day, which is a lot more than 21 a day. I can do like half of what you're doing for the month, but
Well, you changed up your goal a little
Yeah.
bit, at least during the Lent season.
so like, and then in the 40 days of transformation, they said pick something that you can double by the end of Lent. So I'm like, well, I've already got the 21 burpees, so I'll just keep that and then I'll just double it. So I have to do up to 42 burpees a day by the end of Lent. So that will be super fun. Burpees are awful. Like, they really are one of the worst things you can do, but they're also really good because it's like a whole body workout. So you don't have to go to the gym, like you're doing
Yeah.
something every day that's active and getting all your muscles working and things like that. So
So search burpees out on YouTube. I mean, don't leave right now, but like listen to the podcast and then go back out and search for it because we've mentioned it before. Alex and I described it like fall to the ground. That's one version, like chest to the ground, push yourself up, stand up, jump to the sky, reach as high as you can. That's one. Do you go full out or you go like just hands to the ground, feet up? Do you do the push up and
I
stuff?
do push up. Yeah, I don't do the like now it's supposed to fall to the ground and then push up, but I just do a push up, regular push up.
No, I think my fall to the ground is easier to me than just getting down, kicking out, and doing a push up, and then there's one you could do in between, or you could add things at the top, or you could jump over a bar. Like if you've ever seen CrossFit, there's some crazy variations, but you could do it on a couch. So I don't mean stand on the couch, but I mean like instead of going all the way to the ground, just put your hands on a couch, and it kind of gives you an angle, and so that. It's modified. You could start there and do 5. And sometimes, when you do 21, do you try to do 21 in a row? Like when you were doing it in January, was it 21 straight, no break?
No, I would do like a set of 11 and a
Yeah.
set of 10, like with a 30-second break in between or something like that. So
Okay. So you have to appreciate as you're trying to double, like even's better to cut in half,
yeah.
right? It's not an 11 or a 10. Like, how do I commit? Do I do 10, 11?
Right. Yeah.
Go back because you said that you had been getting in shape, or you were a lot more active, and then 2020 maybe hit. And is that where it fell off a little bit, and now you're back, or get to where like you were the most active, or you felt like you were like it was life changing workouts? Like when it was that time in your life where it was like you knew you were doing something that you hadn't done before, as far as activity.
Right. I hadn't really been physically active. I played sports and growing up and stuff like that. Not in high school or college or anything, but I didn't really work out. And so I was a young mom with young kids, and it's really hard to do anything when you have little babies running around. But I had gotten to the point where in my house where we were living, walking from the basement to the second floor, I couldn't breathe. I was winded. I'm like, okay, I probably should do something about this, because if I can't even walk up 2 flights of steps without So I like started doing at-home videos because that's what I was able to do, you know. So for probably about 6 months to a year, I was doing a 20-minute, 30-minute video a day, and that really helped me get back into shape enough where I wasn't dying walking up
Walking
2 sets of stairs. And then I joined a gym that several people here were part of, and those were really challenging, and where I really felt like I kind of grew stronger and like able to push myself harder than I ever thought was even possible. And then I started running, which is another stupid thing to do, along with burpees and running. But that's kind of a good story because like it was the end of 2016, I had signed up for my first half marathon. And like, so when I start something, it's like, go big or go home, you know, like no 5Ks. We're just going to do this. Like, we're just going to do this. I'm not full crazy. Like, I'm not going to run 26.2 miles. I'm only half crazy.
Yeah, half a marathon. It's still a lot of miles.
It is a lot of miles. And I had never run before. Like, I was not a runner.
Yeah.
But, like, it was a point in my life where my uncle had been diagnosed with cancer, and there were just a few other things where, like, these situations felt, like, hopeless to me. And I'm like, what in the world can I do about this? And, like, literally there was nothing I could do. And then God reminded me, like, you can pray.
Yeah.
You know, and, like, so running for me was my place of where I was able to pray and bring those things to God. And that's why I run, you know, like, because if I'm at home, I get very distracted. Like, I'm sure a lot of you can relate. Like, if I'm just going to say, okay, I'm going to sit here and pray.
Yeah.
There's dishes, there's laundry, there's children, there's like 1,000 other things to do. But when I'm running, there's literally nothing else that I have to do. So that for me became like my time of like just me and God.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing else for me to do during this time except try to stay alive, which some days is very difficult. But so so now I try to do like a half marathon every year. I'm not gonna do a full. Like it's just dumb. I have mad props for people who do that. I just can't imagine getting to the end of that half and then doing that all over again. Like I don't know.
I'll stick with the half because I did a half on my birthday, and I just started running last year. Like 45 years old, 44, and I'm like just starting running. Obviously, I was active all my life, basketball, volleyball, whatever. Played football in high school, but like I wasn't. There's a difference when you're a runner. When you're a runner, that's different. I mean, you just start running and then you go. Now, I always was the one that made the jokes like running is punishment. Like in our, you know, like when you're playing sports, running is just for punishment.
Yes.
Nobody runs for fun.
No.
But
They're crazy if they do.
But I started a run last year, and then I got towards my birthday, turning 45. What can I do? What can I achieve? One of the quotes with Alex was achieve something. Like, that was huge. It's like pick something and just achieve it. And so whether it is a 5K, which is still a serious race, but you're like, I just go big, or a half marathon, or a marathon, like that's a lot of miles. And I have finished the half and been like, couldn't imagine like that being okay. Now let's just go. I have this big loop by my house. If you do the huge loop and a little extra, it's a half marathon. I couldn't imagine doing the half loop again. So now the problem is in my brain, or one of my quotes is, if you say you can't do it, then that means you have to try to do it. So at some point, I'm going to have to do this marathon.
I don't think I can't do it. I just don't want to do it. So is that the same thing?
No, I think that is the same thing. I'm sure that was one of the variations. If you don't want to do it, that means it's something you should do. But I'll let you simmer on that.
Me and Jesus will talk about
and
that.
decide if you have to do the whole marathon or not. It's not on my table right now, but let's see. When you were doing those workouts in the gym, was it more of like high intensity interval training? HIIT?
Probably. It was
Hit
similar to
workouts?
CrossFit type, but
Yeah.
some of it was high intensity.
You did like a few different things, and then you kind of rotated through with little breaks in between.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy doing that?
I did.
You did.
It was good because there were a lot of us doing it too, and I think working out in community is just a lot easier than working out and trying to get fit
Community,
on your
good
own.
plug.
Right? I know. We just talked about that in church today.
True, the community aspect of it probably is good, which is one of the things that CrossFit promotes, but you're not saying it was CrossFit, but it's similar style. Did you like having someone plan the workout for you? You also
That
did
too,
just
yeah.
the videos too. So when you were doing those videos when you first were getting into it, it was just a matter of just I'm just going to do what this person tells me.
Yeah, it is a lot easier when someone gives you something to do and you can just follow it instead of trying to figure out what should I do today, you know?
Yeah. It's intimidating to walk into like a charter fitness and be like, oh my, what should I do?
Right.
But do a video, have someone do a plan for you. Trainers could be expensive. If you have friends that can plan it for you, because it's kind of like, that's good. Or at the end of the day, running or walking. When we say running, like when you did your first half, did you just start running and run the whole 13.1? Did you walk parts of it? Did you alternate the very first time?
No, I feel like if you're saying you're running a race, you should be running the whole time. So I did run the whole 13.1. I didn't like walk and
That's
then
good.
run and stuff. So
Did you have a plan? Did you follow a plan to do the half, or you just did your own little?
not really a plan. I just kind of knew based on what other people had told me, you know, just increasing your miles every week and things like that. So it wasn't like a set plan, but just a rough outline. So, and I did one a couple years ago without training, and I don't recommend that at all. Like just showing up and running, like that doesn't go well. Like your body remembers a lot. Like I did the first 10 miles, like my legs remembered what to do, but by then I was like, then I had to walk some, and then, you know, so.
That's impressive. And then you got your even last year and the year that you said you weren't doing as much, you still finished one towards the end of the year.
Yeah, it took me to November to finally get the half marathon in, but I did do it on my own. It's not fun when you're doing like a virtual race.
Yeah.
And, like there's no one to hand you the medal at the end. I like when people give me the medal at
Give
the
you the
end.
medal.
Like I need that motivation to cross the finish line. So I had a medal, but you know I had to put it on myself. So
That's why you have family. That's
I
where
know, right?
your husband or your.
I think my daughter did actually meet me and give it
Okay.
to me, so that was helpful.
I made sure because he ran the first one with me last year, and we made sure there was a cheering section when we got back. It's like, I'm just letting you know we're going to be done about 10:45. Make sure someone's out there. And
Nice.
sure enough, we had a nice little thing, and they set up a ribbon. And then I ran another one. That was on Memorial Day. Then I did one by myself on Labor Day, and there was nobody there. I just crossed my driveway sidewalk, and that was it. I did, because you say you like the medal. When I signed up for virtuals last year, I made sure paid for a lot of more fundraisers, so I knew my money was going to a good cause. I signed up for an Alaskan 5K because it was going to go towards nature, you know, trying to preserve their forests up there or whatever. But so I tried to do that when I did it. Plus, they sent me a medal, so I have a medal from Hawaii. I like the T-shirts actually, is what I prefer. But you like the
I like the bling. Like
The
show,
bling.
yeah. If there's no medal, there's no point of running. I mean, like the prayer is good too, but like I do like having that motivation. at
for the
end,
races, but like
so.
your daily for prayer.
Yeah, for like a race. I won't sign up for a race if there's no medal.
21 burpees, 21 miles split up. You also are trying, you've been reading, do you have a goal each month to read or like a number? Because if you're a number person.
I know I am. I'm just doing one book a month
Okay.
right now. Like I love to read, but you know, life, like I just don't have time
Yeah,
to do
I
as
mean, that's
much
what you
as I
said,
want to,
especially when
so.
you had a young family and then to try to include physical activity and then
Right.
to do the dishes that were sitting in the sink
Yeah,
when you left to do
exactly.
your run.
And that's like the physical exercise became like my way of taking care of myself because like as a young mom, like there was no one taking care of me, you know? So like I had to make sure that I was doing that for myself and for my kids, you know, so that I could carry them up 2 flights of stairs and not die. But that really was a big transformation in my mind too. Like just I need to do this for myself. Like I need to take care of myself, and that's okay to take this time for me
Mm-hmm.
to get this exercise that I need. That's good for me. That's good for my mental health. You know, like that's just a good break from being mom, being teacher, being whatever. This is just my time. So
Yeah, that's really good. I appreciate that. I was going to get into the quotes here. So we do these quotes at the end of our podcast. Again, the quotes are coming from books that I've read, and then they just it jumps out at me. I write it down, and then I write out. Once I pick the quote for the day, I write about it, and then I send it to a group of people. And so this year I'm doing that again, and then I put it on Instagram as well. And so in the podcast, I kind of just want to see or hear what my see, hear, and know. what my guests are think about them as well. And sometimes the quote is like what sticks out for me doesn't stick out for somewhere else, or they could explain it in their own words as opposed to something that I thought. So I'm going to go date order. You can just listen and then jump in, say something if you like it. If you're just like, sure, sounds good. Grit is the best indicator of future success.
Yeah, you had mentioned, like, in your extra writing, you had said something about a student who just worked really hard, and that's something you do see as a teacher, is it's not always the ones who are the smartest, but, like, the ones who work hard and try and, even I had a student who's texting me, like, she sent me, like, 15 texts this morning of questions she's had on the homework. I'm like, okay, she's got grit. She's going to do well because she's trying really hard, She might not be the brightest in the class, but she'll pass. She'll learn it all just the same. She's working for it, so...
Yeah, I like that one. We had a big presentation at Sandberg on grit. First, we had to read a book about it. Then they had the person that wrote the book talk about it, and then we had individual meetings on the importance of grit. And then this week, one of my podcasts I listened to, the guy first thing he said was, "It all comes down to grit." So apparently, that was a good timing for this week. Suffering ceases to be suffering as soon as we form a clear and precise picture of it.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to the attitude thing, like you can think you're suffering, but it's all about your attitude and approach towards what's happening, That one didn't speak as much to me as some of the other ones.
I think that it might be a man's search for meaning, which is out of the Holocaust story. Mm-hmm. So his suffering compared to my suffering, right. I think at the point was a little bit different. But here's what I wrote. 2 people get on a treadmill, same size, same starting point, same health. The first person walks a half hour. They even put on the incline up to 3 at one point. The second person also planned for a half hour, but stops at 18 minutes. The next day it repeats. The next day repeats. The next person, the next day repeats. The next day person, I don't know what this says. 2 never returns. Oh, it was hard. Their legs felt heavy. Their heart pounded. Their lungs burned. So they quit. It kind of goes along with grit, I think. Person 1's legs were heavy, their heart pounded, their lungs burned, but they knew that it was important for their health. It was important for their children to be there for them and to be an example. Which kind of can be summarized in your story about like, okay, if I can't do 2 sets of stairs right now, I'm not going to be any good for anybody. Right. And so that was the importance to you. We all die. The goal isn't to live forever. It's to create something that will.
Yeah, I think as parents you can kind of really understand that too. Like it's not necessarily about, I think I heard a quote once, it's not like about what you do, but who you raise, something along those lines, maybe I won't accomplish much, but maybe my children will, so I like that one. Mm-hmm. That like what you do is important past your accomplishments.
That's good. I always think of like, as you say, like your children, but like, or your students, or nephews, nieces, or people you work with. It's whoever you're able to influence. I've used the ripple effect before. I think that was in January. This is a different way to say it. Mm-hmm. And
for sure, I have students who come back and say, not to. Like I had one student who's just said, it was a really great semester. You can tell that you really care as a professor, and I don't see that a lot. I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of sad. First of all, that, I thought I was more like the norm rather than the exception, So, it's important.
Next one, you commented back on this when I sent it. You are what you eat, and it was more about not just like food, but. What was your take on you are what you eat?
Yeah, I eat a lot of sugar, and I'm not all that sweet, so I don't know that I agree with that. No, I'm just kidding. At first I was like, okay, I've heard that forever, and your extra, like, writing was just not physically only, but, like, emotionally and spiritually and things like that, and, the kind of thought I had was you are what you don't eat. Like you might not be eating a lot of garbage, but maybe you're not getting your nutrients too. You're not getting that time with God. You're not getting that exercise, which is what you need. You can eat a lot of steak, which isn't necessarily bad for you, but you need the vegetables and all that other stuff too, So you need to be getting a full balanced diet, I guess, if you will, to be a whole person, you know.
Don't ask for it to be easier, ask to be stronger.
Yeah, so I had said that, like, a lot of times when I would go to the gym and see a workout, I would say, can we just make this a little easier? Like, this looks really, really hard, and I don't want to do this right now. So, and, you know, a lot of times they'd be like, well, we could, but you're not going to grow from that. You know, your muscles aren't going to get any stronger. You're not going to get any healthier if you just keep doing the easy stuff over and over. So it's not so you push yourself that you do get stronger. So you can ask for it to be easier, but it's not necessarily the best thing for you.
I always try to, one of the questions we get probably as math teachers more than any other teacher, but like, when are we ever going to use this in life? And to my comeback usually is, a lot of the kids in the classroom are athletes, all right? And I'm like, you go in the weight room? Yeah, why? Because I want to get stronger. Like, so what do? I lay on a bench and I like push up weight like 10 times. I'm like, when in your life are you ever going to be laying on your back and have to push up a metal bar like 10 times, 3 times? Like, you just don't. Yeah, but it's making me stronger. Like, like, duh, that's the point, is like, it makes you stronger. So in math, we're currently on trig functions. I asked you what the sum formula for the sine of alpha plus beta is. And you said?
I said sine alpha cosine beta plus cosine alpha sine beta. And everyone else just stopped watching the video now.
Nailed it.
If they didn't quit earlier.
She knew it right off the top of it. And she said it's been a little while. But like, sure, like in real life, most people probably don't need to know that part of it. One of the things that we're trying to instill in our students, though, is like, this is helping you be creative, problem solvers, that type of thing. So, and it says, don't ask for it to be easier, be stronger. Like, that's what I take. And it's easier maybe now that I'm looking back. But like, that's what I'm trying to instill in my athletes and my students. It's like, all this is making you stronger and better. And
it's funny because I use a similar analogy. Like, well, when you go to the gym and you only work out your upper body, then you have chicken legs, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if you're only working the right side of your brain, or left side, I don't remember which one it is, you know, because like, yeah, you're not going to need the formulas, but that logical reasoning part of your brain needs that work and that exercise. So
if you've always wondered what math is for, that's it. We just told you the secret.
Yeah.
Now, again, these were coming from last year. So, and this was written on March 20th. So we might have been on lockdown for like 3 days, 4 days, less than a week. 2020 is your temptation in the wilderness. It will be your biggest challenge, but also your biggest success story. So, and I wrote that literally like not knowing we were going to be locked down the entire year. But
I turned 40 in 2020, and 20 plus 20 equals 40. It's these numbers things, like, you know, how great is that? But it did take me till like early 2019 to realize that all of us 1980 people, you just add the first 2 and the last 2 digits, and that's always your age that year. 2021, 20 plus 21, 41.
You just figured that out.
I know, like, I feel really stupid that it took me that long. But yeah, life changes at 40. Like, what they say is true. Like, everything just falls apart. Literally, things that were easy are like hard, and your body doesn't do what it used to. Like, everything hurts. Like, I wake up every day lately, and like my whole body aches.
so it's burpees, no stop.
It is, yeah.
So you don't skip a day on the burpees.
No.
21 a day.
Yeah.
Well, what are you up to, what are you on doing right now?
I'm like 31 a day now.
Okay, because you're working your way up to 42.
42 by the end of Lent.
And then what are you going to do the next day? 21?
Exactly. Yes.
Are you doubling your mileage, or no? The burpees is what you chose.
No, just the burpees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Double mileage would be a lot too. All right, last one. Unable to change my situation, I changed its meaning instead. And again, this came from Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor. I forgot how to say his last name. I'll put it in the comments below. But it's a great book, powerful, about mindset. But unable to change my situation, I changed its meaning instead. Anything to that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always like a glass half full person, and I know some glass half empty people, and it just drives me nuts. Like, just be positive, you know. Like, it really is about how you think and approach things. You know, you have that ability to change your situation just by changing the way you think about it. You know, like, don't dwell in the bad, but what good can come out of it. Even though we don't see it now, you know, how is God using this situation in my life for my good? Because it says that he works all things together for our good. So, just not dwelling in the woe is me and, why did this have to happen to me? But there's a reason and it'll be better. And I don't know, I'm super positive, which kind of annoys my husband because
Yeah.
he's not always as positive as I am about some things. So,
I'm trying to be like, well, is that good? Is that a good fit? Does he teach you things? Do you teach him things? I'm sure you teach each other things.
Yeah.
And it's a good fit. Some of the things you just said while you were winging it, unless you thought of that beforehand. Here's what I wrote that day. This is such a powerful tool. So again, unable to change my situation, I changed its meaning and said, this is such a powerful tool. Do you have a job that stresses you out? A family member that takes more of your energy than you'd like? Are you just at a time in your life that makes you feel like your back's against the wall? I'm telling you from experience, you have the power within you to change the way you see and experience things. That's kind of what you said. One quote that I've shared that you can ask in any situation is, what is this trying to teach me? 99% of people would rather be bothered than take the time to ask this, and that's sad. In this pandemic, I love the people that recognize we are being forced to slow down, eat dinners together, talk more, read more, take walks, etc. Those are the people that are unable to change the situation, but have changed its meaning instead. And that's kind of like, that's what I've always gotten the vibe off of you as well. Like you say, you're a positive person. Like you're able to twist it to, I mean, maybe you asked that question without even thinking about it. Like, what's this trying to teach me? What's the reason? Right?
yeah, and I think like my favorites, Philippians 4, 6, and 7, the New Living Translation. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. So stuff happens. Life isn't always perfect, and I could worry about it and have a negative attitude, or I can just pray and move on and trust that God has got it, and generally he does. So I know what the outcome's going to be, so there's no point in spending and dwelling in the negativity. But yeah, just let go and let God, if you will. I don't know. I mean, it works if you try it. So
Yeah, total Bob Goff fan. The positivity. If you know her mileage, if you see her running, you know that she's got something on her plate because that means she's praying. So that's good. Do you have a time during the day that you do a devotional or do your Bible reading? Do you have a set schedule? Is it not a daily? I'm not calling you. I'm just asking. Is it a morning thing you got to do before kids get up, or is it after they go to bed and you got a little time in the middle of the day, hopefully when they're at school?
Yeah, no, it didn't. It's taken me a while, but I do wake up early now before they get up because otherwise, I feel like the days I don't, just everything fills in. You know, you just don't make the time. You don't end up with the time, so you have to set aside that time at the beginning of the day and just get it done. And so.
That's good. That was a lot of information. You were a little worried coming on here, but I think you had a lot to share, and I think some people are going to hear a few things. It doesn't have to be the math portion, but
the math is so good.
It is.
Math is really not that bad, right?
You could have done a whole podcast just on math.
I could have.
Anything else? Anything else you were thinking about before you came on? Did we cover everything that you thought we were going to cover?
I think those were the major talking points that we had talked about, right?
All right.
I forgot to say, since I'm on YouTube now, my kids might actually listen to me. So I feel like I should use this platform as a chance to say what I really need to say to them, because that's what they watch is YouTube. So maybe my children will hear me since I'll be on here.
You got that?
So.
Do your homework.
Oh wait, clean your room.
They don't have homework.
Don't ask me questions on your homework. Ask your dad.
He's got more patience.
What else? Get off screens and go outside. There you go.
All right, perfect timing. They can do that now because it's over.
Yes.
Make sure you subscribe, hit notifications. Susan, Michelle, Donovan, what is your screen?
So people always ask me my Instagram name or my email is Sumido, Susan Michelle Donovan. Yes. That's
totally didn't know that was you. So now we know why. All right, have a good one. Thanks.